What is up? Daniel here with the Virtual Robotics Studio. We are back to do finishing touches on our shooter assembly and get this thing mounted into the robot chassis. So we'll get started with that in a second, but of course, before we move on, we got to give that special thanks to First and Argosy Foundation for making this all possible. All right, in order to do this next step, we're going to need a few different things, but the only part that we need is the zip ties. So I think we got some 14-inch zip ties. Shorter might work. You can always link together shorter ones. Longer will definitely work. So anything like that is going to be okay. We need some way to mark our holes, and we're going to be drilling, again, with that 7/64 or a 1/4-inch drill bit, whatever will work, and some stuff to clean the holes up. So nothing we're doing in this step matters in terms of where we drill the holes, but when we adjust these things, the idea is this. This is going to be coming in from the human player, and it also shoots out in this direction. What we don't want is if this is bent up a little bit, that's going to make it really hard to go in from the human player. If it's bent up a little bit and we shoot it out, that could make the note fly out at a funny angle. So what we want to actually do is we want to have this back wall bent down a little bit like this. So if it's bent down, then everything sort of feeds in where we want it to go. And same thing with this small flap on the side. If this is bent out like this, it's going to help guide stuff in where we want it to guide. So those are the things we're going to do. First step then is to, I think it's going to be hard for me to, we can do it. We can mark and drill up here. So on this big plate on the back, once again, we talked about when we needed to be accurate, we had to measure from one side and then measure all the way over to the other side. In this case, we don't have to be that accurate. So we're just going to kind of mark and punch as we go. So the first thing is, set your caliper to 0.5. I know I said we don't have to be accurate, and then I said get your caliper out, but sometimes it helps to have a mark kind of in the right spot. So if you set it to 0.5, our goal is to have some holes kind of in this area here. Hopefully that's colored in enough. And if I scribe down from this edge at 0.5, that is the first spot we're looking for. And then from the top, we're going to do 1.75. And you could do this with a ruler. You could do this with the tape measure. Again, the accuracy can be pretty much whatever. Let's get a score across here at 1.75. So that's our first hole. Second hole is going to be 2.25. And we're going to do 2 of these holes on each side. So there's 2.25. We'll scribe that one in. All right, and we're going to snap punch those. And again, because I don't care if I miss by a little bit, I'm going to go ahead and use the 1/4-inch bit or the 17/64 drill bit directly. We're just going to go right through in one shot. So I'll still try my best to keep it lined up, though. There we go, and then the lower one. Okay, that'll work. So the key here is that we just want to be able to take the zip tie, right, and pass it out and back, and then I can use that zip tie to pull this back down. So that's going to work as long as you're, again, like I said, anywhere in the neighborhood. Let's do the other side. We're going to do kind of the same thing over here on the other side. So move around. So it was like in this general area, I think. And we'll just repeat the marks. So I think it was 0.5 first from the outside. And then it was 1.75. There you go. The second scratch there is the right spot. And then 2.25. All right, we've got our marks for that one. Let's go ahead and snap punch those. And realistically, right, like if these holes were here, if they were here, if they were here, it's all gonna work. If you're too low, we won't be able to pull down. So, you know, and if you're too high, you get a little bit of a different angle on the pull down. So try to hit the right spot, but again, it's gonna work pretty much no matter where they end up being. All right, let's get that top one drilled. And then the bottom one. Oh, get in there. Okay, let's go and deburr all 4 of these holes. Clean them up so they're ready to go. It is plastic, but we don't really want the sharp edges because we don't want anything that can damage the zip tie. So we definitely want to make sure those are nice and smooth front and back. There we go. That one had a big piece on it. Okay, then we're gonna flip this around and we're gonna look at the back. And our front support here, the vertical section, we're gonna need a place for this zip tie to go. So the zip tie goes through here, back through here. I need somewhere else to attach this zip tie to actually be able to start pulling down. And that place is going to be on this vertical tube. And this one's even easier. Everything is 0.5. So set your calipers to 0.5. Or again, you can eyeball it and it probably works out fine. 0.5 is going to be about here, so our mark is going to be somewhere in this area. And you just do 0.5 from the top and 0.5 from the side. Snap punch it, and then we drill. Okay, and this one, we're only drilling through the first wall. Don't drill all the way through the box. We just need the one hole on the edge. Perfect. Let's deburr that hole. One thing that this deburring tool can do that we haven't really done much of yet is you can deburr the inside of a hole. So if you change your angle a lot, you can usually get that inside scraped. If you can't do that, again, because the zip tie is going through here, we want this to be nice and smooth. You can bend that top plastic out of the way and you can get a file in there as well. But here we don't want sharp edges on our aluminum, which could cut the zip tie, which means it won't survive long enough. And I mean, I guess if it does break, you just put a new one on. It's not the end of the world. All right, other side, we're gonna do kind of the same thing. Let's mark it up. And I'm still at 0.5, so we're just going to scribe our 0.5 down and our 0.5 across. And I think I was still straight. I lost it at the end, but I was still straight in the middle. So you can snap punch that and grab the drill. And let's clean that hole off too. So we're going to get outside nice and smooth and try to get the inside here nice and smooth. Yep. That feels good. Okay. So now we're ready to start zip tying, but how much should we tighten this, right? Do we want to pull this down as tight as we possibly can, or what? And the answer is we want a certain distance from this plastic here to the top of our vertical post here on our front support structure. And actually, in this case, you can try to measure it with the calipers. If you can stay right on that corner, then sort of as we pull this down, that measurement will be good. I actually think this is a really good one for a ruler. So let me grab a ruler here. Got a little one. That should work. Nope, that won't work. So you need a ruler that starts right on the end. So mine has a little bit of an extra space. So I think I have a different ruler here. Yeah, this is the one we used before. It's just got a lot of stuff on it, so we'll have to ignore most of the writing. But actually, this is in your kit of parts, so you can have the exact same ruler as me. And the idea is I'm going to basically just hold this so the 1 inch is on the corner, and we want to bend this down until it's touching. Okay, so take our zip tie, and the zip tie is going to go like this. It's going to go through the top hole from the back side where the motors are. Then it's going to curve back through the second hole. And then this bottom part that we're working on is going to go down through our tube here and come out the other side of the tube. Then you can connect it together, and then we can start tightening it. And usually you got to kind of shift it around so there's room. Okay, and one more thing with zip ties, just in case you haven't used zip ties before, on one side, if you run your finger along one side of the zip tie, it's smooth and flat all the way. The other side, when you run your finger along it, there is this bump that sticks up. So in this direction, that you hit that bump instead of being able to slide smoothly. And when you use a zip tie, you want to go in the flat side, not the bump side. Otherwise, you won't hear it clicking, and you'll just have to take it apart and go the other direction. All right, let's get ourselves down to 1 inch here. It's actually pretty close already. A couple more clicks, I think I'll be happy with. And nope, wait, we're way off. Hold on. So the way you want to do this one is set your ruler so that the 1 inch is at the top, and it's straight and flat with the back edge of the piece. So we're going to pull this down even farther until that's touching. So we're almost there, a little bit more. That might not quite be enough. So sometimes if you get stuck against the wall, you got to try to get the whole zip tie to rotate a little bit. Let's see if that got us there. Okay, yeah, that is pretty good. I might have gone just a click past, but I think it'll be okay. Same thing on this side, right? So we'll go in through the top hole, back out through the bottom hole, and then down through the metal box. And this one is not playing along. What you might want to do, if you're having trouble with that, is you can go up through the box first, and then out through the bottom hole, and back in through the top hole. And that'll work too, as long as we're making one loop, one continuous loop here. All right, and once again, we're going to put the ruler here. So the 1 inch is right at the top, and then we just pull until it's touching. Okay, that's pretty good. Touching just a hair past 1 inch. So that looks good on that one. All right, then we can clip these edges. I like to use flush cutters. So they're a little bit different than scissors or diagonal cutters, because if you're right up against the zip tie when you cut, it's going to be nice and flat and there's no sharp edge. Sometimes if you cut it with other stuff, you can end up with sharp edges that you have to watch out for. So with the flush cutters, you can get right up next to it, and it's nice and safe. Okay, we have to do the same thing now on this flap here. So we talked about this flap needing to be bent out as well. And this is pretty easy as well. And the accuracy, again, not super important. But we're going to be aiming somewhere around, I think I can drill from that side better. So we're going to be somewhere in this neighborhood, I think. And we're going to be 1/2 an inch in from the top. So I should not have undone my calipers, but that's all right. We'll set it back to 1/2 an inch. All right, 1/2 inch. Okay, and we can scribe that line here. Cool. And then we want it in the middle of the flap. And our flap should be about 2 inches tall. So we can even double check that. Yeah, it's a little under 2 inches. So this one, we're going to set at 1 inch. And then you can go from either side. And again, even if you're cut a little crooked, we don't need to be that accurate. So as long as you're somewhere around there, then there we go. We've got our crossing point, roughly in the center, 1/2 inch in from the top. Let's get that snap punched, and then we can drill that hole. Okay, let's deburr this hole. There we go. Get the back too. Looks good. Okay, so we're ready now to start pulling this one back with a zip tie. But as we noted in the earlier video, I did mix up which hole was which. This is still kind of a good way to assemble everything. That's why we had you go ahead and continue doing it the way it was. But we'll have to drill out this rivet, which is good practice anyway, and we can go ahead and fill the other bracket with the missing rivets while we're at it. So I'm going to grab the 3/16 drill bit and some extra rivets here, and the riveter. Okay, so first thing is let's drill out the rivet that we don't want there anymore. And when you're drilling out a rivet, all you have to do is basically start drilling into the head of the rivet that's there. And at some point, it might pop in and you'll hear the inside fall out. When that happens, stop drilling. We don't want to make the hole any bigger than we have to, so just kind of stop. If the head pops off, but the inside rivet is still there, that's fine. Then you can just take your snap punch or any kind of punch and push it through. The last thing is this piece that is now on the drill is pretty, it's pretty sharp or can have extra bits of aluminum there. So don't hold this and try to unscrew it. Get a pair of pliers to hold onto that to get that off of your drill. Okay, so we drilled that hole out. We can put our zip tie in now. So that's going to come through the top hole. Actually, it's probably easier if we go through the side hole here. And this one's a little tight because it's only a 3/16 hole. If you are really struggling getting this through, you can drill that to a bigger size. But my zip ties fit through. You may have to, if you have bigger zip ties, you may have to drill that hole out a little bit. Okay, then we just bring this in and get it started. Okay, and then we need to get our measurement for this one. And this one is going to be 3 inches. So from this edge here, we're going to want 3 inches to the plastic touching. Okay, so we're going to start pulling that in. Let's see where we are. And that is not quite there yet. Okay, and we're aiming for the 3 inches to be the top of this piece. So this one actually, I think, might be easier to measure with the tape measure. So if I bring the tape measure in from here, I'm going to pull until that 3 gets to the corner. So we're at 3 and about 1/4 right now. So we're going to do another couple. And I think it's easier to push this in to tighten it. But you do have to be careful. You have to do a few clicks at a time because you can go too far that way. It looks like maybe one more click. And I did 2. Let's do one more. And by 1, I mean 2 again. All right, that is, yeah, that's pretty good. 3 to the corner of that piece. So that's in the spot we want it. And now, because I kind of mixed up and thought we were leaving this hole open for that zip tie, and obviously it's this hole, we're going to go ahead and add a rivet to finish this plate out. And then we have the same hole over here on the other side because we weren't sure which side was going to need the zip tie when we were assembling it. So let's go ahead and pop a rivet in there as well. All right, that's good. Let's kind of clear everything up. We're going to bring the chassis in, and then we're going to go ahead and get this attached into the chassis. But I guess really quickly before I do that, let's cut this last zip tie. All right, be right back. All right, we're now ready. We've got our chassis. We've got our shooter assembly here, and it's going to go together something like this. But we have some problems before I put that in. The first thing is we're going to need to make sure that our shooter is at a very specific angle. And right now, our frame is not stable. So if we measure the angle when it's this way versus this way, we're going to get much different results. So if you have some extra 1x1 box, or really any 4 things or 2 things that are the same size, what we can do is slide these under the frame here out towards the edge. And I'll do the same thing on this side. And so now instead of riding on the bottom of our transmissions here, we're nice and stable on those 4 pieces of box. Okay, the next thing we want to do is let's remember which hole we're going to end up attaching stuff to. So on this side here, we added these churro pieces. And on one of them, on one side, right, we skipped that inside hole and went farther out. And that's because that inside hole is where we're going to end up attaching the diagonal part of our shooter here. So it's going to be this hole right here and this hole, same hole on the other side. Okay, which means we know now that the diagonal side is going to line up with these holes and the straight side, the vertical side, is going to be here on the front of our robot. So let's bring this thing up. And we're going to put that, again, so that the straight vertical side with the motors, with the end of the flap, is against this edge of the robot. And I'm just going to pull that back and in. So I'm basically flat against the back here right now. And then the front is going to slide in and line up on those holes at some point. Okay, so first thing I'm going to do is sort of work these vertical beams on our front support bracket here in until they're touching and they're kind of sitting flat. I'm going to use my quick clamps on the back here. Oh, I guess this is the front. Sorry, on the front. So we'll squeeze that in. And then same thing over here. Just make sure it's all the way kind of back. And we'll lock that one in. Now, even though, let me tighten this up just a tiny bit. Okay, so even though we're clamped on the back, it's still really easy for me to tip this. I can tip it a lot forward and a little bit back. So that is okay. It's going to give us room to still make adjustments. Hold on. I think this one, I want to try to make sure this is sitting nice and flat when I clamp it. And I think I was a little bit off on this one. So we'll reclamp that. Just make sure it is, again, I'm just trying to have it sit flat on the bottom and be pulled back all the way. All right, now on the front, what we actually have to do is get this at a specific angle. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get a clamp here started. And it turns out, I think in order to have enough room to be able to drill, I'm going to have to take this clamp onto the edge, the lip on here, so that it's not going around this piece of the frame. So that's a little harder to get lined up, but so something like that. We're going to have to ride right on that top edge. Otherwise, we're going to make it so it's really hard to drill the hole. And I can't flip the clamp around because that lip is stopping me. So now that that clamp is sort of on and holding, we're going to need to use an app for this. So we need it at 56 to 56.5 degrees. And one of the things we want to do first, though, is if I put this down on the robot frame, right, we need this to be pretty close to 0. So it's 0.2. And let's see, as I tip up in the direction we're going, so I'm 0.2 tipped too much. So actually, my target is not 56 to 56.5. It's 58 or 55.8 to 56.3. Another thing you can do, though, before you start is you could add some shims. You could try to level the robot out so it's pretty close to 0 when you start. And 0.2 is not too bad. 0.2, maybe 0.1. This looks like it's in between. So when I put this on here, I do not want to be 56.5. I want to be a little bit less. So I'm right at 56.5 right now. So I think I want to adjust this up a tiny bit. So I'll do that. I'm going to loosen this clamp. And we're going to try to pull up just a tiny bit on that. And then lock it back down. Obviously, if you have extra people, somebody can be managing the clamps and somebody else can be holding your level there. Looks like I changed it by 0.1. Okay, so I'm going to do that again. I'm going to aim to be somewhere between, like comfortably between. I don't want to be on either edge of the 56 to 56.5. So we'll go a little bit more here and see how that does. $56.2. That works for me. I'm happy with that. So even if I was at 0.1 or 0.2, I'm still pretty much in the middle of the 56 to 56.5. All right, let's come around and let's work on the other side here. Okay, and also if you use the same app that I got here, this one is called Clinometer. I don't know, it was free, but I did have to go into the settings menu and change the unit mode. It was on engineering 1V:H, and I switched it to degrees because that's what we're measuring here. So make sure you're in degrees mode if you're using the exact same app as me, but there are a bunch of them and they will all work. All right, let me get this clamp close so that I don't have to struggle with it. Okay, and let's see where we are on this one, 56.4. So I kind of want to bump this up a little bit to match the other side, be closer to that 56.2. I don't think that's a big change. So I'll just pull up a little bit, and then we'll go ahead and tighten this one down. And let's see where we are. OK, that was a big change. I went to 55.8. Let's check the back one. Kind of want to be checking in between. That one is still 56. So the front one needs to go down just a little bit. More, all right. $56.3 and 56.1. Okay, that's probably about as close as I'm going to be able to get the two sides. Obviously, you could spend some more time on it, but if you're about that close, you're probably good. And my clamp did fall off, so we'll retighten it and hope we haven't moved too far. 56.5. Okay, so we moved a little bit. Let's try again. There we go, 56.3. And the other side is still 56.2. Perfect. All right, so we are ready to drill. I've got my 7/64 drill bit here. And like I said, we're going to be using these 1/4 inch, 1.5 inch long bolts and the associated lock nut. And then we'll need 2 7/16 wrenches or 1 socket and 1 wrench. And we marked that hole, so all I'm going to do is drill as straight as I can through that hole. Okay, get lined up. All right, and the back of this, well, we can take the clamp off now because the hole is where it is. So I'm going to deburr the back of this. The front, we already had a hole, so that one's pretty good. Okay, and then let's run our bolt. So we're going to take the bolt. I think it probably doesn't matter, to be honest, which direction this bolt goes. But I'm going to take the bolt from the inside and then get it lined up on that hole and pop out to the outside. And I'll put the nut on the outside here. And this one, I am going to tighten all the way because this needs to act sort of like a clamp for us as well as we move on to the other side. So if I leave this loose, it's not going to be holding everything in place while we go to drill the other holes. So we'll tighten this one down. Remember, we are tightening on box, and we're using a bigger fastener than we were before. So it will be very easy to crush this box down. So be careful. Once it's tight, it's tight. And if you do end up going too far and crush the box a little bit, that's fine. Just stop. If you loosen it up, the box is not going to uncrush. So, you know, it's fine. It's tight. It's the way it's going to be. All right. Now, the other side. Let's flip the robot around here. And we're going to drill the same hole down here. Okay, I got to stop because I hit the clamp and I don't know if it moved. So let's double check. Also, let me get this closer to the edge of the table so drilling is a little bit easier for me. All right, where are we at? Still 56.2, so it didn't move. I just heard it rattle against the clamp, so we should be good to drill. All right, line it up, and let's go. Okay, and it's okay that we knock the clamp off now because, again, the hole is in. So where the hole goes when we tighten it up is where it's going to go. So we'll deburr the inside, get another set of hardware. Okay, and again, I'm going to start on the inside here and go through. I hope. There it is. Start the nut on the inside of our frame, our drivetrain side. Oops. And let's tighten this down. Okay, that looks good. We're going to do the back, but you should be paranoid. Let's check it again. 56.2 and 56.2. All right, so we're good to attach the back as it is mounted. But it's always good to check because we can still adjust the back to make up for the front. Now we're going to do a 1/4 inch hole again on the back, but I think we want to drill from the inside out. And I think the instructions say about 1 inch up from the bottom of these vertical tubes. And the reason why we want to drill through the tube first is on the outside here, we can't exactly see where the tube is, so it's a little bit harder to line up on the tube, although, you know, it's not so bad. You could definitely drill from the outside. So it's just a matter of making sure, right? Like, it's hard for me to mark the center of that tube, so it would be completely eyeballed. But, you know, maybe we'll do it that way. All right, so this is about 1/8 of an inch. So that means I want to be 1 1/8 inches up. So if I do that, I can actually mark on, well, I can't really mark on the box I have, so I guess we are looking at kind of eyeballing it. So that's about 1 inch up. That looks like it's in the center of the tube. Again, if you're not comfortable lining this up, you can mark directly on the tube on the inside and go for it. And I would say it kind of doesn't matter too much where this hole ends up. It's going to be okay. It's going to work as long as you make it through the tube on the other side. And we'll do another 1/4 inch bolt back here. All right, and that first hole we had a lot to drill through. The second one will be less, but try to keep it straight again. And we got to deburr both holes here, so let's clean this one up. And same thing on the inside. Okay, and it's the same bolts. Again, I don't think it really matters which way this bolt goes through, but we'll go from the inside out. This leaves us more room on the inside in case you have to attach other stuff. It does mean that we're getting a little closer to the wheels and the belts on the bottom, but I think it's going to clear no problem. All right, let's tighten this one up. It's good. This clamp is no longer doing anything. And we'll flip it around one more time and get the last one drilled. So same thing, I'm kind of, well, I guess if I bring this over, I can mark my 1 inch up pretty easily. And I'm just kind of looking through. This is the center of this tube. So, and there is my 1 inch mark. So right about there. Okay, and let's go ahead and drill it. Make sure it's straight. And just like the last one, let's clean up the hole. And on the inside, and then we'll grab our bolt. We'll get it started, and then we'll tighten it in. That'll do it. All right, now that we're all the way in, let's do one more check on the angles to make sure we're still, at least in the ballpark. Shouldn't really have been able to change too much. And it looks like we are. Oh, hold on. I think one thing I have to be careful of is when I was drilling, I got some shavings on my aluminum pieces. So make sure those are cleaned off. Make sure the area you're putting them on is clean. And then we can also start with the frame. So I'm up to 0.3 now, when it was 0.2 before, so we'll keep that in mind. But we are, it looks like right at 56.5 on that side, and 56.4 on this side. So we should still be good. If you drill these holes and your angle is way off and you go to test the robot and it's not working and you have to make an adjustment, if you can get another hole drilled down here, that's great. If not, we'll talk about some things you might be able to do. But I think if you built an angle, if you got a piece of angle here going up, that would give you room to drill another hole. So we'll talk more about that if we have any problems with this robot when we do our testing later. But that is it for this video. We have the entire shooter structure attached now to our chassis. Now that that's all attached, we can come back, we can build the wheels and the rest of the drivetrain out, finish up the base, and that will be the next video. So we'll see you in that video, but as always, before we go, special thanks to First and Argosy Foundation for making this all possible.